You are listening to WRUU-LP, Savannah, Georgia, 107.5 FM. We are Savannah Soundings, community radio with a global soul. Our theme music is a clip of Summer Nights by the Eric Jones Trio. It's provided by our friend Mark Chesanout, who plays with the Eric Jones Trio every Thursday and Sunday at Good Times Jazz Bar downtown.
Hey everyone, welcome to Arts on the Air. This is Tamara Garvey, and we have Melissa Taylor back.
Yay!
Welcome back, Melissa. I'm so excited to have you.
Delighted to be here.
And today we are interviewing a lovely artist named Gabrielle Torres. Welcome.
Thank
Gabrielle.
you.
Hi.
Thank you guys for
So
coming.
glad to have you.
Yes.
I'm going to read a little bio from her website, and we will start off. Gabrielle Torres' work seeks to expose the balance between materiality and meaning. Her art aims to decompose compartmentalization, blurring the lines of what we, humanity, presume to know.
That's me. That sounds about right. Yeah.
That's a lot, and I'm excited about it.
It's a lot to unpack.
I'm pleased that I got through pronouncing the word compartmentalization.
Well
that
done.
word,
Live on the radio.
such
Okay.
One of my favorites.
Okay, so it looks like you were born in Philadelphia and raised in South Carolina. And you recently, in 2021, finished your MFA in painting at SCAD. Congratulations on
Thank
that.
you.
Huge accomplishment. Was SCAD what brought you to Savannah?
Yeah, like 10 or more years ago.
Oh, okay.
I know. I moved here, and when I didn't have any kids, and I fell in love with the city like most Savannahians do. And you also fall in love with like being able to walk around with an open container.
Yeah.
So that happened for a little while, and then I met my husband, Brian Torres, and then we had kids, and I was like, oh snap, I think I moved here to get my master's, and I haven't started school yet. So I started getting back into painting regularly again. I always painted, but not as regularly, and now it's like it's constant. But then I went back and got my master's, and fast forward a year and we're here.
So masters with 2 children.
2 children. I had a 40-hour job.
Wow,
That's
full-time.
impressive. Congratulations. That's a
I
lot.
wish you could see my face. It was a lot. It was a lot.
I hope you
and
took a really long nap when you finished.
I tried, right? I think I had like 2 months off, and then it just
Sounds like you had a lot of professional success since then, so you're still rolling.
yeah, it is still rolling. All good things. So.
What did you do in those first years when you first got to town then?
Oof.
Other than the open container law.
I worked in a lot of restaurants.
Okay.
And I always tried to keep a art-related position just to help me get to where I wanted to go. And I always try to stress that with my students, like even if you're not where you need to be, at least try to be oriented with the arts. So I worked at Painting with a Twist for maybe 10 years. Every now and then I pop back over there. I love entertaining and making people laugh.
Really?
Yeah. It's like, it's no stress. We go in there and we just have a good time.
That's fun.
Teach them how to paint their dog or something like that. I love that. But yeah, so I worked at Painting with a Twist for like 10 years, and I generally waited tables while I was doing that. So I did a lot of fine dining. And I did show from time to time, but nowhere near as much as like how I show now or what I show now.
Yeah.
And at the time, the work wasn't developed enough. It was just it was getting there, you know. I think SCAD definitely, they have a way of really shaping you up and shipping you out. So very glad
Those
that
critiques are rigorous, aren't they?
yes, but I went back at a later age in life. I'm glad I didn't go back right away.
Yeah.
I went back with tunnel vision, I always call it, because once we had kids and everything, and I already knew what I wanted to do in life from when I was younger, I was like, okay, so what are we doing? You know, what are you doing? So when the kids came, it was just like, we have to make the most of everything. We have to make the most of this education that you're paying for.
Yes.
To make the most of.
You don't have time to mess around.
No, so I went in like guns blazing at SCAD. Like I went in like a sponge.
And you had, all this life experience then to draw on. Working in customer service is very, very difficult.
Yes,
so it really
it
lights a
is.
fire under you to do well in your program.
Yeah, there's something about life experience too. I say that to my students too. It's just like, make sure, you're determined and you're on path for what you want to do, but also experience life at the same time.
Yeah.
Because like the passion and that feeling on the inside that you get for the fun experience that you have comes from those moments sometimes too. So you need a balance.
And you need, your artwork needs to be about something. You need life experience in order to have a reason to make the art.
Right, correct.
Oh, I was just gonna ask, like, how do you think your style and what you do has changed from your bachelor's to your master's? Because you said you just kind of honed in and sort of found your...
It's weird. I think
thing.
that it's all there.
Uh-huh.
And everything that we currently have inside of us at this very moment was already always there. Always feel like that. It's kind of like the Taoism, you can't step into the same river. It's like it's always been there. It's the same river, it's just different parts of the river. And I very much feel like that when it comes to who I was then. Because when I was an undergrad, my work did have hints of colonialism and that idea, but it wasn't developed, and I didn't know what I was really talking about. Because honestly, I wasn't as invested at that point in time. I knew that I loved art from when I was 7, but I was young and I was experiencing life, so the dedication wasn't 100% there at first. So fast forwarding to now, it's like even the fabric that's in my work, my mom always sewed. She's a seamstress, so it always kind of like manifests. When I first applied to get my master's at SCAD, though, the interesting thing is that I was painting horses, though.
Interesting.
I was painting these abstract horses, and I was knocking them out, and I was painting with my kids. We would paint all together on the backgrounds, and then I would put the horse, and they'd go back over it. So that was something different, but the first thing that I ever drew when I was little was a horse. I love horses.
I did that too. The first things I would draw were horses as well.
So it's funny how these little points of who you were help you to become who you're going to be. And even 15 years from this conversation, when this developed work develops even more or morphs into something else as of that point. So I find that really interesting as well.
Were you really into drawing and painting horses because was it the shape of them that you were enjoying, or was there something that they represented conceptually that you were into?
I think they represented the drive. I always consider myself I have a wild spirit a little bit. I'm actually Year of the Horse for my Chinese zodiac, which is interesting enough. So it's always been something that's been there, and the body of work was the Mommy Chronicles. So becoming a mom, it was just like a wave of, you don't exist anymore. You belong to two people. Oh. You're not your own person. And it was trying to persevere through saying that we can do these things as women. We can push and make these things happen and get back to who we are. So I was combining painting with them. So it was the idea of the perseverance at the same time. And to me, that could be a characteristic of how horses are, even though you do break horses, but there are wild horses that you can't break sometimes.
Yes.
So I think there's interesting symbolism in the idea that when I was painting the horses. And
I'm just last weekend the bookshop did a graphic novel panel, and it was 3 graphic novel artists, and we had talked about the one thing that they don't like to draw, and they all were like horses. No, 100%.
Wow,
no.
interesting.
I just think it's funny.
Really?
I love horses are the things that are you either love
as if
them or
it
you
came
hate
up
them.
for them a lot, the opportunity to draw a horse.
You never know.
Yeah.
I just think it's funny.
It was second nature.
Yeah.
I think I know the anatomy of a horse really well from drawing them from when I was little, and those little draw by number books. Draw the circle here, the oval here, and I drew them all the time. So as an adult, it was second nature.
I had the same thing. For some reason, it was a thing that I easily could just draw from memory, and the shape of it, I just got good at it and can churn it out the way I wasn't with anything else.
Right. Yep.
Yeah. So I want to talk, I want to get into the physicality of your actual work, but just real quick, I wanted to ask, what was it about? Was it Savannah or SCAD that really appealed to you when you moved here first? I was curious.
Can I say both?
Yeah.
I'm a beach person. Yeah. I'm we thrive on the beach here. I believe in the climate can set the mood for who you are, as far as when it's not as sunny outside. I mean, I'm happy, but I'm happier when I'm in the sun. So my kids and I over the summer, we go to the beach 3 times a week. I take a sketchbook out to the beach. I've taken paint out to the beach. So that's been really essential for just who I am. I always say I didn't know that I was going to be, I call it a good stock in Savannah, but I couldn't imagine anywhere else being stock, because it's just such a beautiful place. It's charming. There's a diversity here that I enjoy. It could be diversified a little bit more in certain areas, but that's a topic for a different time. But for the most part, I do like the community that it houses, especially for artists. At my graduation, my mom presented this framed little plaque, or it was a letter that I wrote when I was in middle school, like your goals. And I wouldn't have said on there that I wanted to go to SCAD and get my master's and teach. And so she presented it on the day that I graduated.
You can just check that off, like mission accomplished.
It was, so that's why I say it was like, and at that time, I don't think that I had been to Savannah. I came to Savannah during my undergrad with some friends once. I had a friend that was actually going to SCAD. So I hadn't even really seen the town just yet. So when I got here, it's like a mixture of the two. And I didn't really remember this letter that my mom presented to me. It was my handwriting. All the spelling was horrible. So it totally was mine. Same as today. But I hadn't really remembered it. So when I came during undergrad, that's when like the love for the city, the love for seeing the school firsthand, it just came together. And I was like, I mean, when I graduated, I moved to Savannah within 2 or 3 days. Like I packed up all my stuff up until that point and shipped out.
So also in that letter was, you know, that you wanted to teach. What draws you to teaching?
So for teaching, you all will see through this interview, my mom's had a lot of positive influence on my life. But she always called me like Mother Teresa when I was little. She would be like, you know, you're always trying to give your last shirt off your back for someone else. Like, you do have to take care of yourself. She would always say that you're always willing, you have a bleeding heart, you wear your emotions on your sleeve. And so between that combination and being an artist, it was either between that or being a vet when I was younger. Mm-hmm. The spelling's not there, and the math ain't there either. I'm letting you guys know that now. It's not it's not where it needs to be. So it quickly unfolded that, like, no, you're an artist, you know, and not in a bad way. It wasn't like a fallback. Like, since I was 7, it's like, you're an artist.
Your chosen thing.
And it still was between the vet, but like for the most part, eventually it kind of fizzled out, and the artist was always still there. Mm-hmm. But so the combination of those two things together for me, it's like when you're teaching, you get to foster that type of environment where you're caring for someone at the same time, and at the same, you're teaching. So even though we have students that might just do plein air painting, you know, and it's really important as a professor to be able to see that they're not about the concept, which is totally fine. That doesn't make their work any less valuable because they would prefer to go out into the woods and paint. But there is that aspect of teaching where you do have students that want to communicate or use their platform for something, and how to foster things like that in a respectful way. So in a way, it's like you are shaping the minds of tomorrow. So in a caring way, it's like a way that you can give back to what is to come, in a sense. Even though now I'm starting to see, because I work for K through 12 for a split second there, that might need to catch them a little bit before college. But at the same time, it's never too late to learn things. So,
well, and I think teaching at an art school is so special because so many students don't have access to art in K through 12 because art programs are being cut. So you get these students who are really passionate about it in spite of the fact that they didn't have access to it in their you know, K through 12 schooling. So I think that there's something really special about teaching art in college.
Yeah, like suddenly there's a lot to learn, basically.
There is, but getting them a little bit younger.
Yeah.
It's a language of bonding. It's a language of learning. You know, earliest civilizations, before we could even communicate, we were using like art in a sense, and not really technically, of course, calling it art. And we were using art for fertility and things like that. So it's like, it's a community-based thing. So to me, I think that art needs to start right away for kids. And for the most part, when you're using crayons in class, it does start. But just for, wow, it's just loaded thoughts all at one time. But when students manifest to become a little bit older, to me, it's like how they interact with other students. If they're learning art, they could get along with students a little bit better through just the different cultures that you experience in the arts. Anyhow, I can go on.
I think one thing I think is really interesting about the K through 12 level is just how different the access to art is, just depending on what town or what part of the country, like just that it's not standardized at all what people have access to. Like there's an interview I did recently with a printmaker named Jennifer Mack Watkins, and she said that she was first introduced to printmaking in her high school art classes, which I found amazing because my art classes did not go anywhere that specific into, you know,
That is super amazing.
Right?
We did not. I think when I was graduating, they were thinking about cutting the arts. That was like the last year when I had graduated. But I can tell you all of my art teachers growing up.
Yeah.
You know, and we learn how to question everything through the arts, which is the name of my, like, one of my shows. It's like question what we think that we know. Not saying that, you know, how we're raised sometimes is bad or wrong. Life is a lot more values, not that black and white, you know. But the idea of, I was raised in a very religious household, and in a respectful way, I've come to question some of the things that I've been taught. But I don't think that spirit would have existed if I wasn't an artist. I think that is what I was trying to say earlier, of how the arts have a way of doing these things sometimes. I couldn't really quite put my finger on it, but I think that is an exact way of explaining it.
Yeah. Yeah. I think for artists and scientists, the whole basis is just to question things and get to the truth, right? Okay, so I'd love to talk about your physical work when looking at your website. It really runs the gamut between, there's installations, fiber sculptures, and then you have more two-dimensional collages that are like paintings with bits of fabric and plastic bags on them. So it's, you know, amazing the diversity, but the common element seems to be your use of materials and fabrics. And I didn't know if you could talk a little bit about, was it during your MFA program at SCAD that you got into that, or how did that develop?
It was during the MFA program at SCAD, but it was also the idea that some of my work, it doesn't really talk about it a ton, is that I have roots in like ecology as far as wanting to preserve where we live and how we live. But I was noticing in my household, like every Christmas we had like 1 million gifts. You know, so we have a different Christmas now. We get like 5 things, like from mom and dad, and then as far as what we get from other parents, we'll ask them for like more of experiences and things. But families are some of like the biggest polluters in the world, and we don't mean to be. We go for things that are more like accessible or easy to get or quicker or just more. It's just things that make having a family a little bit more easier. But in the same time, having things that are easy is not always the best for the environment. So I had all these things in my house that were just like building up, and I was smashing toys. At one point in time, I was hoarding all the fabric that y'all see in here. I was like, I have to figure out how to make something of all this stuff. I can't just keep throwing these things out. So that's when it started really turning. And then the fabric, I think that, like I said, when everything is already kind of inside of you, it felt more natural to start gravitating towards like the sewing machine, because when I was younger, I always sewed with my mom. I don't sew nearly as well as her, but I do enjoy, like, there's a memory, you know, when you're pushing the fabric through.
Just that muscle memory.
Yeah, I love it. It brings back a nice childhood memory there. So I think that's where like the mixture of materials. And then when I was growing up, I think a lot of people don't know this because you can't tell from the page, but the plants that are in the work are live. Like they're real live plants.
That's super cool. Like how do you make that work? Like what's the process there?
So it's still an evolving process. It's an evolving process because the more we show, or I show, the more, and I say we because I talk about the plants like they're live. So I'll say the more we show. So the more we show, the more that I get in situations where, okay, well, we might have to problem solve this. So for the most part, they are woven through the warps and the weft, because I do fibers pieces, and that's when the plants are mainly in. But sometimes they hang to be more like technical how they actually show. But it's kind of a hit and miss. Some people do not want to show them because they don't want the pressure of having to take care of plants.
I was gonna say, like, they probably are not used to having to water the artwork.
Yeah. Yes. We've had some totally die, but I try to disalarm people about, like, if you want to show this, it's no pressure. Someone else will if you won't. If you want to show this, then if the plant dies, I'm not upset. I do ask that you take an effort to try to water it. I have gotten some of them back, and I can tell I'm like, you didn't even take an effort on this bad boy. But at the same time, I don't say anything because I'm just gracious for the opportunity.
Yeah.
It does hurt a little bit because I do feel like my plants and I are connected. But at the same time, honestly, I've killed a few of them. Yeah. So it's just like, you can't really be that mad if I've killed a few of them at the same time.
And they come back having experienced something, and they're stronger on the other side. Right?
So you all out there in TV land can't see this plant in the corner that has just this beautiful movement going on. But this one died and came back.
See?
And to me, the negative space in it, it's one of my favorite plants in here.
Yeah.
And like, it was full at one point in time, but the way that it just died.
Yeah.
And
The
then
plant has a story now.
Yeah.
it's beautiful to me. It's like the whole movement of it that it's just so. For the most part, it's okay when it happens.
I was noticing that you have one piece on your website that was called the Paradox. Is that the one you're thinking? Where it's this like wooden frame up on the wall, and you have this fabric woven in rows, and then you have these little jars, like little test tubes with the greenery in it. So it's little like jars of just water with the plant in it.
They're propagating.
Yeah, so people just have to go around with a little watering can and just fill up. Like you can clearly see whether the water is empty or not. It'd be pretty easy to take care of it, right? And it was English ivy. I really liked this piece. I wrote down all the details on it. I was like, it has little jars of ivy hanging off of it. It was amazing.
Yeah.
So the show at Savannah State had a similar hanging, this flag piece over here, and those have jars, and there was ivy in that. So I do use English ivy pretty much for the majority of it, because the ivy symbolizes colonialism, because it's an invasive plant that was taken from England and brought into the United States, and it's considered invasive. So it is the drive for most of the work. But for that one, it was really cool because when I would see it at Savannah State once a week, I could see like the roots. And the ivy is not, in my opinion, as easy to root as like the golden pothos, which is a more common house plant. I've had a plant that I didn't water for a year and it was still green. I just kind of forgot it was over there. I'm not joking. And like I put it back in water, roots.
That's the kind of plant I need.
It's a good one. It's one where I might send where people are like, yeah, we don't know about that. I'm like, I'll send you an easy one. And
So requires no work.
Exactly.
Really.
Through your art, you've become a really knowledgeable botanist.
In a sense, it has. I mean, I used to garden a good bit. These little buckets out here where they had like tons of tomatoes in it, and the seasons change and things change, and we're thinking about moving, so I'm just kind of focused on other things right now. But these are still my focus, the plants in the shop. But yeah, it has kind of, I've had to do a lot of research for the types of plants that I'm showing, because it's the origins of the plants are really important. How they grow is really important. How they just the whole thing, you know. So for the most part, the plants are kind of the bond between everything, and it's another material.
Yeah.
So it kind of speaks to that idea of all the different materials that are going on.
Yeah. I mean, conceptually, what you said about the English ivy being, what is like an invasive species, and then it's on this piece of like the colors of the American flag is, I mean, it's very conceptual.
Well,
it's
and
awesome.
anyone who's ever had ivy in their yard knows that it will take over everything. Like,
yeah, it's a powerful statement to put that into art pieces.
Thank you.
Yeah.
And I wanted to say, I lost my footing a little bit earlier, but I wanted to mention that the gardening was something that I did with Mom growing up. So my mom has a massive garden, puts mine to shame, and mine is not at its prime right now. There's been some years here in this house that it's been like sunflowers busting out of places. My dogs didn't trample the backyard. But I do consider myself, I'm trying to think, I probably have a yellow thumb, not a green thumb.
Okay.
I'm trying to think going on the color wheel.
You're moderately good.
Yeah, I wouldn't say it's like purple or like, that sounds bad. Even though yellow I'm not quite green all the way yet. I kill a few things, but for the most part, I'm inching. We'll call it like a pale green or something like
you're
that.
getting there.
Yeah,
chartreuse.
Yeah, chartreuse, that'll work. Sage green, maybe that'll work.
You had one art piece that involved tulle from a wedding dress, and I was
From your wedding dress, right?
Was that hard to tear that up and use it?
I'm trying to think which one that is. I think that's the mother piece. I might, and also I use them in multiple works. So I think this one actually might, and this is a newer one, this more two-dimensional piece might have tulle from my wedding dress. It wasn't hard because it was scraps. It's not that for that piece that I tore up my wedding dress, I just had scraps from when my mom made it. So once again, whipping it right back around, she made my wedding dress.
I love that.
And she just gave me all the scraps that were left over from it. And so to me, it was symbolic because that's what my dress was made from. But sometimes it feels good to repurpose things. So when it's like you have something that you're toggling with, that you're like, oh man, you know, like I really want to make something out of this, but I can't really fit it anymore. I think to see it repurposed in a specific way, like on this piece, this is my mom's dress, and I'm working it into this piece right now. But for her to see it repurposed like that, she really liked this dress at one point in time, so she gets to see it in new light.
As an art piece. Yeah, and it's interesting to see. So we're looking at your work like in the process of being built.
It's a newer process too.
It's cool. So it's like a wooden, stretcher bars like you'd have for a painting, but it's just like, what would you call it? Strings running across it, like a loom almost.
Yeah,
they are
the framework
looms.
of it.
So these
Is
are
that
all
what it
looms.
is?
Yeah.
Okay.
And then there's some more back here
So it's a real like mashup between like fibers, art pieces, and painting. Yeah.
So while I was at SCAD, I started taking classes in fibers because I wanted to know how to like crochet, knit, and I like the sculptural quality that like a lot of fine art kind of combines with when they're using fibers. And I actually have the evolution of more sculptural pieces too. There's some more back here. But I wish that I would have discovered that earlier in life. And we talk about that in foundations a lot. You know, we try to talk to the students about getting more into fibers, because still people don't know. It's one of the oldest types of art. Making clothes, one of the first things that you know what I mean? Yeah. And we don't even think about it a lot of times. So I'm one of the people that'll probably end up going back and getting a master's in fibers eventually, because it's so robust. There's so much stuff that I want to know that, you know, you do like a mini crash course, those 10-week courses, and it's like, we're doing weaving this week. Now we're doing crocheting. Now we're doing knitting. And it's
well, it's really interesting to me that, like, because I am a knitter, like what you can do structurally with those things. Like, I just don't think people have any idea, like, what's possible with what you can do with fabric and fibers. And,
the fibers department, I was surprised when I studied illustration, and in my last quarter at SCAD, I randomly took like an intro fibers class, and it was about surface, like pattern design. Oof. Which, and you know, it was my last quarter, and I was like, oh my God, I could have, as an illustrator, I could have delved into this and then learned how to make, like, you know, wallpaper or carpentry or, you know, just tablecloths or something like that.
Like those amazing printing facilities where they can do all the fabric printing, and it's so cool.
You can be making curtains, tablecloth, like everything for your house. So it's like that. It's sort of like the surface of, you know, the artwork that you're doing is fibers, and then also, like you mentioned, all these different materials, like, you know, crochet, weaving, all these things. It's just like such a broad department. It's incredible.
I just mentioned that to someone the other day. They were saying they wanted to go to illustration, and I was like, well, come check out the fibers first. There's lots of illustration and fibers.
Yeah,
and you can do both.
There's a lot of crossover.
It's a nice backup to have, or not even a backup. You can combine the two.
That's it's nice to have both those skills.
You can combine fibers with like almost everything. Your hair is fibers.
Yeah,
you know what I mean. It's like, it's wild.
You also, in some of your pieces, you use plastic bags are collaged into them too, which I love, just because there's so much. I feel like everybody jokes about having somewhere in their kitchen like a bag full of plastic bags, or just keeping them around to try to reuse them for something. I mean, it's like, it's almost a joke just how ubiquitous they are and how we all have so many, and we're like looking for ways to do something with them. So
I wish that I could do more with them. A lot of the times in my more two-dimensional, I call them my traditional paintings. So the looms that are, I call them loom paintings. They speak to the idea of looms. So I call them more provisional. And then the traditional ones are the ones that you see are more on like substrates and things like that. So I melt the plastic into the images.
Oh, wow.
So they're like a layering technique. Like on the left side of the face over here, it's all melted in.
Okay.
So it's not very obvious, and it did come about with trying to repurpose a bunch of things. And now it's just kind of stuck. And that's how it lives in the works. So.
Do you have to take care, like, materials wise, with the plastic burning? Do you need to have a mask, or is it like a toxic situation?
So, and that's one reason why I could not 100% go into like ecology and stuff like that, because of the idea of like you're melting plastic, which is not 100. It's not good for the environment to do that, but it doesn't totally like dissolve. You know, so I don't know scientifically if it's just as bad if it's like not melted all the way or burnt, or if it's just melted in. I can imagine it's not 100% good overall, but at the same time, it doesn't completely dissolve. It just heats up enough to melt into the canvas.
Just to adhere it down.
So is that a technique that you just developed through trial and error with it, or is that something that you saw somewhere that...
There is an African artist, and I might butcher his name. It's like Benny Latoya or something like that, but he melted a lot better than I did. But he would take these giant strips, and they were different colored plastics, and his heat gun, I use a heat gun, it moved a lot faster. So I don't know if you just had a better heat gun than me. I don't know, mine doesn't move like that. So it's a technique that I learned from another artist, but at the same time he uses it in a completely different way. Like, I don't even know how he heats up or melts the plastic into the canvas like that. So,
well, we are going to take a short break. Thank you so much. This is Gabrielle Torres, and we will be back.
listening to WRUU-LP, Savannah, Georgia, 107.5 FM. We are Savannah Soundings, community radio with a global soul.
Trees are one of Chatham County's most treasured natural resources. Beyond their beauty and cultural significance, the impact of trees are far-reaching and compounding, spanning from economic benefits to health improvements to climate change resilience. Trees are woven into every aspect of our lives. Savannah Tree Foundation protects and grows Chatham County's urban forest through tree planting, community engagement, and advocacy. More information is available at savannahtree.org. This portion of WRUU's programming is brought to you by listeners and by Brighter Day Natural Foods. Brighter Day Natural Foods has been serving Savannah's healthy food and supplement needs since 1978. It is located at the corner of Bull Street and Park Avenue. They have online ordering and curbside delivery available, and now a walk-up window for smoothies, juices, and sandwiches from the deli. They are open from 9 a.m. to 7 p.m. Monday through Saturday, and 10 a.m. to 6 p.m. on Sunday. More information can be found at brighterdayfoods.com.
What does it mean when we say that WRUU is a community radio station? It doesn't just mean that we invite the community to create programming. And it doesn't just mean that we're a voice for the community. It also means that we're counting on the community to keep us going. And you are the community. Almost all of our modest budget comes from small annual or monthly donations from listeners like you. You get to enjoy our community-focused programming because many others have stepped forward to do their part. Now do your part by joining our community of listener donors. Go to WRUU.org right now and make a one-time or monthly donation. And thank you for supporting Savannah's community radio station, 107.5 FM.
Hey, welcome back. This is Arts on the Air. It's Tamara and Melissa, and we are interviewing Gabrielle Torres. Welcome back, everyone. Thanks for coming back.
You're welcome.
Welcome back to our listeners.
Wander off.
So when we took the break, we were talking about the materiality of Gabrielle's work, and I did want to ask, there's a section on your website where you have some collages, and the titles were very evocative. I wrote them down. There were things like, "You Can't Wear Your Hair Like That," "All That We Can Afford," "Do I Look Like a Threat?" And they were just very interesting titles, and it sounded like maybe there was a particular time you were working through some autobiographical issues.
Are they good titles?
They're great titles.
Yeah, I mean, they really say a lot.
Yeah, they
so
do.
I didn't know if you wanted to talk about if
Oh,
there's
that's lovely.
something personal you're working
titles.
through.
At least I thought I was struggling with titles.
Actually, the one specifically, like the "Do I Look Like a Threat?" That one is an incredibly powerful piece with that title. Like it's.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Well, titling is very essential. I mean, if the work has a mystery to it, which I feel like, I'm going to do air quotes here that y'all can't see, all good work has mystery to it, and that's just my personal opinion. The title is like a little innuendo of like what the work is about without giving it away entirely too much. So for "Do I Look Like a Threat?" that is personal because it's a painting of my son, and it is talking about racial issues, and I think he's like 3 at the time, but he's playing and he's just like looking all happy and excited, and there are his clothes that are in there, and it's like Buzz Lightyear and like dinosaurs and like totally non-threatening objects or clothes from my children are being used to make this piece. And so I don't know if it was always hinted at that was supposed to be the idea behind the work, but then when it came out and I looked at it, he just looked so happy and so inviting at the same time. And I think around that time we might have been dealing with like George Floyd and Ahmaud Arbery. And so "Do I Look Like a Threat?" Such a, sweet little chocolate boy, what's so threatening about this little guy? So it felt really, really strong to make it that title. And the same thing for "You Can't Wear Your Hair Like That." It was taken so my children are half Puerto Rican, and my daughter, we have to go a little bit into context for this one. My daughter has very much different hair than me. She's got it's wavy hair. It's not, I have like an afro. She has wavy, barely a ringlet curl at all. It's not we don't know. She got somebody's great aunt's hair on dad's side somehow, very different. And I would put her hair in like box braids and put like little beads on the ends because it's like more of a traditional, I think, like African American hairstyle, but she doesn't have the texture of like African American hair. So there was a time when my eldest daughter, Lucia, she's like 21, her hair is closer to my texture, and her mom is white. So she's half white, half Puerto Rican, my stepdaughter. And I was braiding her hair one day, and like I said, she's got kinky curly hair, and I'm not actually her mom, so I just think it's ironic. And her mom has straight blonde hair.
Oh.
Yes, it's really interesting when you see us all together.
So you knew how to work with her hair, though.
Yes, yeah. I can work with her hair probably better than the one that actually came from me. So I was braiding her hair, and then like she was about to go to bed, and she started taking it out. And I was like, why are you taking your hair out? And she was just like, oh, I can't wear my hair like this to school. I was like, why? She's like, because I'm not black. And I was like, I don't understand.
Yeah.
And then she was just like, well, I would get picked at from like everyone, black and white, because it's a black girl hairstyle. And I was like, I was picking with her. I was like, but you're honorary, you got black siblings. I was like, and we're laughing about it. I was like, but still, like, on a serious note, like, why is that a thing? I mean, braids don't just date back to like African lineage.
Yeah.
I mean, it is very prominent, like lineage for like braiding hair and things like that. It might be the oldest. I don't really know. I'm not sure. But then you have Vikings that wear braids and stuff like that. So it is from different places. And that idea of her not being able to wear her hair a specific way, I was a little offended. Not by her, but just by the whole and it stuck with me for like weeks and weeks and weeks. And then when I had this picture of Anya, and she's like swinging her braids all around, braids of a child that probably doesn't look like she could potentially be half black, or she doesn't have hair like a traditional black girl, but can she wear her hair like this? So it was interesting. She's got little beads on there. And so, like my son, one day we were watching something on TV, and so Brian is really fair skinned. I am like more of like brown skin. So you could say, I mean, in many cultures, there's a racial division is off of color Pantones. So technically, Brian could be considered a white Puerto Rican, and I'm just considered African American. I'm considered black. So my son is watching something on TV, and two different races kiss, and he says, they can't kiss. They're not the same color. And Anya on the bed bust out laughing. You're so stupid. She was just like, Mommy and Daddy aren't even the same color. What are you talking about? And then he just kind of like looks like, oh. And I'm like, where did you learn that? That would definitely not be taught in our household.
Right.
So it's like he noticed. I don't know if he picked it up at school or if it was just something that he noticed and then. Yeah. But who knows? I mean, it's interesting.
It is interesting.
Yeah. Well, thank you very much for speaking about that.
You're welcome. Were there any other ones you wanted me to? I know. Did we mention Black Crib or I don't know if that was one.
As far as your pieces or the titles?
Yeah. Were there any ones that you wanted me to touch bases on?
Yeah. There's a section of your site where you have installations. There's a bed and there's crib in the woods, and there's like hanging fiber pieces in a room with brick walls. That I didn't know if that was part of your MFA program, because the bed and the crib in the woods definitely scream like MFA art show to me. It's very conceptual.
So just about all of the work is still under the umbrella of colonialism. Even the bed with like the back fiber pieces in it, that's talking about how relationship roles operate when people are kind of stuck in the superstructure of how you think about like what men and women are supposed to do. So with like dissonance, it talks about how sometimes in relationships, and this is the crib piece, it's covered in kids' clothing, and it talks when you start having kids and you kind of lose yourself in life. Sometimes you're tripping over toys and things like that. You're knocking things around, and it just kind of builds up. So it did come from being like first time. Well, for me, a first time parent. Brian already had Lucia. But it was building up, so it was like there's something missing about the bed. It's like kind of oddly placed in the room. There's no mattress on it, and so it's called dissonance because it's talking about these ideas of how we feel we should be raising our kids, and it just gets kind of mucky sometimes. Black Crib is kind of what I was getting to. It's one of the pieces that is somewhat outside of the idea of colonialism, and I'm really big on thinking that a lot of things in life can probably be roped into it, but I'm going to be honest and say that it's not one of the ones that is. I have a friend that was having issues with conceiving, and when I would talk to my friend about her issues with conceiving and how I know people that have had issues, that haven't had issues with just having girlfriends, and just hearing both sides of it. It was really heavy at that point in time. And so what I ended up doing is taking like this delicate idea of a crib. It just seems like you see it and you think about a baby. And I shattered glass, and the whole crib is covered in shards of glass. Mm-hmm. It's entirely covered, and it's spray painted black. It's like a matte black. It's not shiny or anything like that. It looks like it actually is burnt. Mm-hmm. And then, so I posed it in the woods, and I watched it decompose for days. And I took some video of it, and then I actually put plants. This might have been actually the first time that I used plants and didn't realize it. It might have segued into that eventually. Yeah. But now thinking about it, like I bought plants and I like kind of installed it all together with the plants inside. And then over days, like people tampered with it. They moved it. Mm-hmm. One of my neighbors said they thought it was something satanic, which was really interesting. And I was like, it's not satanic. I would prefer for you not to move it again, but if you do, like it is part of the piece. It eventually evolves. It becomes
he came
part
across
of the work.
What he thought was like a burned crib in the woods.
He did think it was.
It does sound horror movie-ish.
Yeah, a little bit. And so after a while, I would see, and he didn't move it anymore, but each day something had been moved on it, and eventually it was like pushed over, and then eventually it was just gone.
Interesting.
It just disappeared.
Well, that sounds like a horror movie in and of
it
itself.
Does.
That's Blair Witch Project.
But you get to see the plants. It was enough days at least to see like the plants die inside of the crib. And I did pick some greenery, or I guess like foliage that had died, and I did put it in there. So you have the contrast of like living and dead. And then like how glass, you know, when it's in a nice form, it could be soft, but once it's shattered, it's something that can be really harmful and hurtful to you.
Right, yeah.
So yeah.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
I did want to shift gears a little bit and talk about, it sounds like, so since you graduated with your MFA from SCAD, that you right away you've had a lot of professional success, and you've been in a number of shows. One was, I think, was it the FAAA show at the Savannah Cultural Center?
Yeah.
And you've been in a small work show at the Telfair, and you've had a residency at Sulfur Studio. So I didn't know if you wanted to talk us through a little bit about the progression of how it's gone just in this year since you've gotten your MFA.
Yeah. Wow, so it really did kind of take off. I'm gonna put Calvin on the spot here, Calvin Woodwin. So he invited me to join the FAAA, and I think that was one of the best ideas that I could have ever done. I highly recommend any artist in town to do that. It's a good way to show and to get your work out there. So I did, and through that show, I actually got my solo show at Savannah State. So I've had 3 solo shows on top of the small work shows that I've had works put in.
Okay.
And of course, you know, the solo shows the group shows are important, but solo shows, you want to get solo shows. So the one at Savannah State with Calvin and FAAA rolled into Savannah State, and Savannah State, I did a show in Hampton, South Carolina, where most of the loom pieces and the more traditional ones all went out that way. And then after that,
cool.
Atlanta, I had I have a show up right now in Atlanta, and it'll be up until I want to say the beginning of January, which will probably take it down, and that's where my gallerist is. So actually my first solo show out of graduate school, like pretty fresh out within like a few months, even though I'm still pretty fresh out.
Yeah, just a year out.
I haven't even hit my graduation date yet, technically. Was given to me by my undergrad. It hasn't happened yet. It's actually the furthest show out, but they were the first ones to put me on the calendar and send me my contract.
And I don't know if we even spoke of where exactly was your
undergrad?
undergrad?
We have at Lander University. It's in Greenwood, South Carolina. It's a small liberal arts school, but it's not until next year because their gallery is generally, like most, booked out pretty far.
Yeah.
Oh, and we can't forget Sulfur Studios. Sulfur has been showing me while in grad school.
Okay.
That's awesome.
Amazing.
Did you have to build up a body of work from when you graduated and were in like group shows to doing solo shows, or did you have a body of work that you had created already to do a whole solo show?
Luckily, I came out with a body.
Nice.
I realized later that I was creating, I think 4 times, or no, double the amount of work. Most students were creating about 4 pieces a quarter, and I was doing about 8 to 10.
Wow.
I didn't know that at first, because in the our outline for the syllabus, it said that we needed to create it, but apparently it was a little bit more flexible than I realized. I'm like Amelia Bedelia. Like, if you say this is what you need, I'm going to deliver exactly. Like you say hit the road, I'm going to go smack the road and come back and talk to you. Yeah. Like, I'm very literal. So when it said it on there, I didn't figure out until like it was time for me to graduate that I didn't need to be producing that much. So I was already producing pretty quickly, which I'm so thankful for that, because it built up an incredible studio practice. Like, I was out here every day almost. And I can't thank SCAD enough for that, in a sense, because it's sometimes, even though you want to do it, you can talk about doing it, but developing, I cannot stress how important it is to develop a regular studio practice if you are a full-time or an artist in general.
Because it's so easy to just, if you have a full-time job, to just do that and to really get out of the practice, and then it's just like exercise. It's hard to get back into it.
Yeah, it can be.
If you stopped, Where was so when you graduated from SCAD, where did you hold your thesis show?
An abandoned building.
Oh, let's talk about that.
Yeah. I do like horror movies, I promise I'm not like this.
Did you go out looking for a building?
Y'all, I got all types of good stories for y'all. I'm not even joking. So originally, the thesis show was supposed to be out at the dairy farm.
Okay.
There's a tree out there, and I think it's called like the Lost Boys tree.
Okay.
You got to go all the way in the back. There's this giant tree.
There's a swing on it, isn't there?
Yes. I was going to hang all of these works from the tree. I actually got out there the day before and had a few of them up. They made these beautiful sounds in the wind because they were hung with chains. And it was actually creepy once again. I don't know if there's something there, but it had an eerie feel. I would say it was more eerie than creepy. But it started to rain.
Well, that doesn't work.
Wow.
It got so high out there, we had to wait for it to go down to get back out to pick the work up.
Whoa.
Brian, my husband, thank God for him knowing so many people in Savannah, he was talking to this one gentleman this is going to be great. So the new Halloween movie that just came out, that building that the
one that they were using to make it look like a radio station?
That's where my thesis show was.
Oh.
Nice.
I know, yeah.
And we cleared it all the way out. It was when I went in there, I said, Brian, there's no way we're going to be able to clear this out in a day. And he helped me. I had some other friends that came and helped me clear. There was this ton of like just lumber.
Was this wood after the film crew used it?
This is before.
Okay.
I got it first. So.
And then when they were using it for the movie, I feel like everyone in town was talking about this cool, weird, quirky, old abandoned building that is going to be in the movie as an 80s radio station.
And so that's where my thesis show was first.
That's very cool.
Trend setting.
I know, right?
You should reach out to Jamie Lee Curtis and send her photos from you and be like, hey, do you recognize this venue?
I know, right? That would be cool. So it was there, and we were able to clear it out. We were able to transform this space. And it was very much like guerrilla New York feel.
Yeah.
The works, there's like the Savannah brick that's in there. So it was very much still morphing with the work and very meaningful still. And then there's this raw idea that it was just bare bones as well. Like there's just like these beams and everything. Oh, yeah. The work feels very raw to me.
And was it hanging by chains in there too? Cool.
Yeah.
I wish I'd seen that. That sounds amazing.
Well, it was such a quick switch. Everyone was preparing for this awesome dairy farm example. I had these tiki torches that were going to lead you to the back and everything. And I'd been talking about it, promoting it. And I was like, nope, we got to graduate. It's going to be here now. And it was not it wasn't one of the things that felt like, not a compromise, but.
Oh, it just wasn't what you'd intended.
But it wasn't. What word am I looking for? When it wasn't a settle. I didn't settle.
Right.
Like it felt still very much that like it vibed with the work, and that I was proud. Yeah. And I can be really upset when I'm very planned. So if it doesn't go exactly as planned, it can really agitate me.
Yeah, you had this whole vision of being outside and everything.
Yeah. I'd been out at the dairy farm planning for like weeks, and I paid for it too.
Oh wow! And did anything get damaged after being rained on like that?
No, that's one thing that I wasn't really worried about. They are relatively like water friendly.
Cool.
For the most part, they can't get like torrential downpoured on.
Yeah.
But if it got a little misty, the wind, I wasn't really 100% worried about that.
It was smart to do that in Savannah.
Yeah, and
the allowance of water.
The weekend at first said that it wasn't supposed to be, and I think the tide was coming up actually because it was going to be raining. I don't think it actually rained now that I think about it. It was just by the time we got back there with the U-Haul, and it was like, Brian, we can't even get the work. We had rain boots on, and it was like up to here.
Jeez.
That's how far the tide had come in. So
Need
it was
to go
really,
save it.
really a big adventure.
Yeah. Really.
What a story.
Yeah, it's a good one.
That's additional stress you don't really need when you're trying to graduate.
No, but to me, it shows dedication.
No, for sure.
Yeah.
Yeah.
My professors were like, "Why are you doing all this, Gabe?" But I was like, "You go big or you go home." What do you mean? There's like, it's a thesis show, and I was like, "Yeah, but this is like my big."
You sound like you have a real element of like performance art and theatricality to you a bit. You talked a little bit about the residency that you recently had at Sulfur Studio.
Oh, yeah.
So that was interacting with people in the neighborhood and conversations. And can you talk a little bit about what your plan was for that? It sounds very conceptual.
I'm a big love bug. I do consider myself a lover of humanity. This is going to relate what I say next. I do love like dog people. You know, I am a dog person, but I love people that love people. I love dog people too, but I think we need more people lovers in the world. Not that you should stop loving dogs. That's not what I'm saying. I'm just saying there's a lot of people that are like, I love dogs and that's good enough for me.
Yeah.
I think we need more people that are, I love humanity. I love the earth. You know what I mean? I don't know. It's just like things that I feel as if we all should care about and all should be passionate about because we're all in this together. So for the residency at Sulfur, it gave me the opportunity to interact with the community and to figure out, you know, what are these barriers that we feel that surround colonialism. And it's not just always based off of race. I like to talk about race sometimes, but I don't like to make all of my work about race because it's not, in a way it is in my head where my mind is not free. If I have to make all of my work about race, then there's another way that race has a hold on me. So I try to shift the idea to the umbrella of like colonialism as well, because these are things that have a hold on everyone. Everyone. You know what I mean? And like, even though race definitely has a hold on a lot of people as well, for people of color, it's like we can't take our skin off. This is our everyday. And that's why you see a lot of artists that make work that are of color about color. Because it's like a simple walk to the park is not the same for someone that has darker skin. So, but at the same time, I've been very, 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 very dedicated to making it not the primary idea of my work. So with the residency, it gave me the opportunity to talk some about that, but then talk about how did colonialism impact you growing up? What are some things that you think about, like how colonialism affects ecology, these different areas that it could relate? I mean, do you want to talk about how it affects how we raise our kids, how we view gender roles and things like that, how we just even sit our spoons on our plates at the end of dinner or something like that? It's in everything. It's in the smallest things that we don't even realize and know about. And it's uprooted a lot of cultures, and some people might think to say that these cultures weren't developed until colonialism came on. How about we just give them the time to and let them do it in their own way? So I'm very funny about that, but the residency opened up the idea of we can have a really tough, heartfelt conversation. Maybe disagree upon it. I will always be respectful unless you're just straight out disrespectful and crazy. But for the most part, you can say almost anything to me and I'll say, all right, cool. I may not agree with that, but I respect that you. So it's a safe space in a sense to have this conversation. But when people came, I will let them know, you know, this is what we're going to be, this is what we could talk about. Or we could talk about when we used to go to the Rail and do karaoke. Either or, it's fine with me.
You gave the option.
Exactly. Not everyone wants to do all that, you know. This discussion that I'm talking about with one of my friends is not one that I had during the residency. She just happens to be one of my best friends that is from like Meldrum. And is real Southern. This is like Southern. I wouldn't call her a belle, not in like a bad way. She's just really more of like a spitfire. But we would have some of the hardest conversations. We would talk about Trump. She voted for Trump at first, but then the second time around, it was a no-go. Because it's not that I changed her opinion. She had other ideas of why she changed her opinion. But she also talks to me about her family that votes Republican because that's what they feel like they're supposed to do, or Democrat because they're supposed to. It's on both sides with that sometimes. You know, so we've had these really hard conversations like multiple times, and we haven't had one argument.
That's refreshing to hear.
amazing.
That's
Yeah.
nice.
Yeah.
But not all of them could go that well. But I can, like I said, I can see like what do you have? What stakes do you have in it if you'll never see this person again? What does it matter?
Yeah.
You know, so that makes sense too.
Yeah.
But yeah, all of them went super well. I mean,
That's amazing. And then you made artwork from.
Yes.
They brought in
Yes,
fabric,
sorry.
and you made like a
Sorry.
painting.
Circling back.
I'm bringing her home.
Right, thank you. I'm like out here sometime. We, and I say that because I feel as if they have some type of credibility in the work as well. They would bring in their fabric, and that's why I said we could start the conversation off talking about the fabric, but the fabric was actually woven into the loom. So when I was sitting there talking to them, sometimes I'd be weaving it as I'm talking to them, and they could see how their part plays in this whole grand scheme of things of us Savannahians, who are an awesome city if you think about it. And then the more so two-dimensional paintings, I still have some that I have to do because it started off really slow for the residency. I would say like the first weekend, I think I might have been sick, or actually I had a COVID scare. So I missed like the first few days of the residency because I had to wait. So I felt like I was antsy. I was like, this is
Like you were already behind.
yeah. And I like to be prepared. And so the first weekend, we had a few people turn out, but then after a while, it was hard for me to get things done because there were so many people coming in. So I was having to come in on different days throughout the week to work on the loom and paint because some of the conversations were rolling into like 2-hour conversations.
Wow.
Yeah, they were great. So we did a mixture of the weaving into the actual loom that was done on wire. And I've been slowly changing them to being done on wire because I'm thinking about the longevity of the work and how the work can exist in different forms in different ways. So now that piece from Sulfur exists as a sculpture. It's no longer a wall installation. It's a sculpture now. The paintings, I think I did a total of 1, 2, 3, 4. I think there's like 5 paintings that were done during the residency of people that came in. There was one that I started before just to kind of like get it going before I had people come in. But other than that, I painted people in like their element. I would tell them at the end, like, hey, do you mind if I take some pictures of you? If it's okay, I'm gonna paint it. I did have one person, Samantha Mack, we were sitting there talking, and she's talking to me about how she wants me to paint her in like in a cool way, and I didn't get it at first. I was like, I don't understand what she means, because she wanted me to do an abstract work of her on a loom. We were speaking to, so I did one piece that was for Samantha Mack, and I did a portrait inspired in a loom.
Interesting.
So it's an abstract self-portrait of Samantha.
It's almost like her aura.
Yeah,
her
so
essence.
she brought in all of her paint genes because she's another local painter. And
Amazing.
yeah.
That's super cool.
Well, this has been fantastic. Thank you so much.
Yeah, thank you.
I love ending.
Thank
Yeah,
you.
I love ending on this part about all the neighborhood people who you spoke to, and that the discussions just went on, and people had so much to say to you. It was very heartening.
I'd love to do it again. I mean, I could have probably, John and I talked about, maybe we should have turned it into maybe potentially a 3-month one. He said that's a possibility.
Okay, so this has been fantastic discussion. I'd just like to end with if you wanted to talk to us about some other shows you have coming up where people can see your work.
Yeah, so I don't know if it's 100% out, but it's out now. Antonia at the Cultural Arts Center for Black History Month is doing a all-black female artist show, but I'm trying to do a collaboration of installation with all of us together, or whoever. And then there's another show coming up that I have at the Marietta Museum, Cobb Museum in Atlanta. And I might have said that a little bit backwards, but that'll be, I believe, in like April. So it's a textiles piece that I'll be showing with several other artists in that area. And of course, the show, one of my solo shows, that'll be in Lander University, which is in Greenwood, South Carolina. I don't know if people want to go that far, but it is coming up, and it is a solo show, which is interesting. And that show will probably have all new work in it, given the fact that it's that far out.
It's a long time away.
Yeah.
Cool.
So that should be fun to see as well.
Well,
nice.
Fantastic. Congratulations on all of your professional success you've had already.
And look forward to the upcoming shows.
Yeah, it's been Gabrielle Torres. I've been so excited to have Melissa back.
I know, it's been great to be back.
Thanks everybody for listening. Next up on WRUU, That Old Savannah Magic from 4 to 6 p.m. It's a variety show featuring Savannah history, radio theater, interviews, and music.
You are listening to WRUU-LP, Savannah, Georgia, 107.5 FM. We are Savannah Soundings, community radio with a global soul.